Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I do appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe if you like my content. And today let's talk about Blade Runner, the game from 1999. And I'm doing this from the top of my head. This is non-scripted, so bear with me. And I was aware of this game when it came out, and I wanted to pick it up at the time, but I never got around actually doing it and playing this game. So it's been 22 years, and I only picked it up recently on GOG.com. It was sort of in limbo, this game. I think it's owned by Electronic Arts, but they never did anything with the Blade Runner license. So I'm very happy that it came out on GOG.com, and I actually got around now to play it. So I have a sort of a fresh look at it. This is a game that's been talked about, written about for, the longest time. So I'm not sure if I actually can add anything interesting to what's been said or written already. So let's just start out with the basics. You play this investigator, McCoy, looking into some strange killings of animals, and there might be replicants involved. So if you're familiar with the Blade Runner universe, you have these Blade Runners, and McCoy is one of them, that sort of chase replicants that are basically robots or androids that look very much and behave very much like humans, but they're still robots or androids. And this game is all about the investigation, gathering information, looking for clues, and slowly but surely the story of the game sort of unravels, and it's very well written. It starts kind of slow with a simple, what seems to be a simple burglary kind of situation where android animals were killed, but it sort of escalates quite quickly. And again, if you are familiar with the original movie, the game does capture that sort of cyberpunk atmosphere of this futuristic looking Los Angeles quite well, with pre-rendered backdrops of this sort of neo-soaked futuristic looking city, and also the motion captured 3D characters. It still holds up quite well even today. We'd probably say this looks very retro style. The only downside to the graphics and how it looks, and there are some travel sequences. If you move from one location to the next, you are treated with a little cutscene that you cannot skip, which gets a bit boring after a while to look at the same rendered cutscene over and over again. At the time, I think this game came on 4 discs, so there was a lot of digitized information stored at the time on these discs. Also, the voice acting is quite good. The voices are very clear, although the delivery is sometimes kind of stiff. McCoy, the main character, he kind of lacks the charm. He has that sort of fairly standard police investigator guy vibe to him. Seems like he's sort of a B-grade stand-in for Harrison Ford, who played the main character in the Blade Runner movie. So I just wish I could play Harrison Ford in this game, but unfortunately you have to stick with McCoy. Unfortunately, there are no subtitles in this game, which presents a problem for people who have hearing problems or people who just want to read what's being said. I like to read stuff that's being said just to keep up and to not miss anything. Now, in classic point-and-click style, you are, as a player, guiding McCoy through the screens, talking to characters and picking up items. Because of the sort of ever-changing perspective, the navigation of the character is somewhat confusing. You can't always go to all the locations. Sometimes locations are not available yet. So it feels kind of restrictive. And again, the camera sort of shifts and the whole scene kind of shifts at times. And it's somewhat confusing just to walk through all these screens. Also, since the graphics are of low quality, sort of retro style quality, it is sometimes difficult to spot small items lying around that you can actually pick up. There isn't a whole lot of pixel hunting in this game, because the game does not rely that much on item gathering and item manipulation so much. But still, there are some things that you can overlook. There are also bits in the environments that you can hover over with your mouse, and that turns the cursor of your mouse green, which indicates that there's something to interact with, only that you'll hear the comment by McCoy saying it's totally uninteresting, for instance, or there's nothing to be seen there. So I'm not sure why the developers put these interactive bits in the screens if there's nothing to get from them in the first place. It kind of boggles me. Also, the talking bit to characters can be confusing. I mean, you should really talk to all the NPCs you meet, and sometimes, multiple times, you get this dialogue box with certain subjects you can talk about with the character. But what sometimes happens is that you choose one topic, and then the subject sort of decides, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore, and sort of leaves or just stops talking to you. So that can be frustrating, since that means you are locked out of essential information you could have gathered from this character if only you talked about another subject first. And it's not always clear that you should do that. It's I sort of meet a character and I just randomly ask a certain subject, but I think you really should pay attention to what you are going to say to what character. And as a result, it is entirely possible to miss a certain clue or a location even, because you get locked out of that part of the game. And this game has what seems to be a sort of an AI system where certain bits of the game, certain bits of NPCs, of dialogue, of certain clues that will push you in a different direction. And I wouldn't say it changes the whole story, because in general you will end up at the location where you should be ending up, basically. But the game, because of the sort of randomness, the random nature of it, the game can end with various situations, basically. And that situation in general will mean that you either are sort of joining the cause of the replicants, or that you sort of try and eradicate them, and there are some variations in that. So yes, I think it's a very interesting system here where things are randomized. Sometimes a character will not show up at a location where you expect him or her to show up. Sometimes you need to revisit a location later on, so the situation will reset and you will run into that character, or even not. So that randomness makes the game feel very alive in a way that you feel that this world is not stale. But on the other hand, it can also frustrate, since you don't really know why you are locked out of a certain situation, or that you just can't get the information you want, and you're sort of pushed into a little direction
I remember early cues.
Also, there are some unforgiving action sequences in this game. A couple of situations where, for instance, you can have to run out of a building because a bomb is going to explode there. The running out of the building bit is so tricky that you can save yourself if you're fast enough, if you run fast enough, but it really relies on clicking on the right position in the screen. And if you don't do that, you basically die each and every time when the bomb goes off. But only if you sort of are fast enough to click on the screen at a certain location, the character will run in a certain way that he won't die from the explosion, for instance. And there's other bits where you need to draw your gun and shoot some rats or something like that, and you really need to nail it. And it's not that good. I think this game could have done without the action sequences, I believe. But also, I mean, the gun part, I guess it's also part of the randomness. You can shoot certain characters or not, and that will give you a little different outcome. So I understand that there's some shooting involved, but it feels sort of iffy. I guess that's all I gotta say about this game. It's for a game that came out in 1999, I think in 99 or 97. I don't even. For that time, I have to say I'm quite impressed by the system that Westwood implemented here. And the randomness sort of adds to the replay value, because it seems like if you replay the game, things will reset in a different way, so that you might run into a character earlier on that you might have missed in a previous playthrough, for instance. So there's some replay value. But for a player just wants to sit through it once, I think it's pretty wasted on that player. I'd say that overall this game holds up well today in terms of production values. It's just very ahead of its time in terms of the way that it brings the world of Blade Runner and the city of Los Angeles, the futuristic city, alive with the little animations and the characters that walk around, and it just still feels very, very alive. Also, I believe there's an enhanced edition in the works by Night Dive Studios. I'm not sure if I actually want to see an enhanced edition. They will make a higher resolution graphics one and that sort of thing. I'd say just leave this game alone and try and make a sequel. You know, after so many years, 22 years, or 23, 4 years. I mean, it's almost 25 years. I guess it's time for a sequel, a new game, and this game is still quite playable. So that's what I think of Blade Runner the game. And I hope EA does something with the license and just breathe new life into it, I'd say. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you liked the video, and see you next time.
Everybody having a good time tonight? What does a marriage and a tornado have in common? First, there's a lot of sucking and blowing, and then you lose your house. You know what my first wife's nickname was? Twister. A doctor calls up his patient. I got bad news and I got worse news. The bad news is you only got 24 hours to live. The patient says, what could be worse than that? The doctor says, I've been trying to reach you since yesterday.